Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a clean comedian, actor, and of course, voice-over artist. None other than Mr. Danny Johnson.
Hey.
Welcome, Mr. Donny on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel, thanks for having me on. I'm an avid reader, so when I came across your podcast, very excited to be on here. But yeah, I'm based in the U.S. out of Northeast Florida and travel the country telling jokes. I keep my stand up clean um, by choice, and I've been doing it for almost 20 years now.
20 years. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Donny. Thank you. Thank you for giving those laugh for sure. So today let's talk about your journey as being a comedian. What was the specific moment or joke where you thought,
Mm.
I have to do this? What is the revelation or slowing dawning obsession?
Yeah, a good, interesting question. So, I think it was growing up the oldest of five kids and constantly seeking attention. That was waning as the years went on, but I had been always been a fan of Saturday Night Live. Are you familiar with that show?
Yes,
And
still
late night
alive.
television, the comedians on late night television. And
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a very loud, funny family that poked fun at each other. And once I saw stand up comedians on television, I thought that might be a path that I could take and ended up giving it a shot and falling in love with it and haven't stopped since.
Growing up, were you the class clown or the quiet observer or something
Quiet
else? How
observer.
quiet
Yeah.
observer.
Yeah. Contrary to popular belief, most performers, actors, comedians, we are introverts.
Mm.
So we are the observer, and then we perform when necessary. But we're constantly soaking in the environment and creating, and then saving it for the stage. If that makes sense.
Who were the comedians you reverse engineered?
I I think the comedians that have had the most influence on me are Jerry Seinfeld, Kevin James, and probably Robert Klein. Um, just I remember just seeing them when I was younger and how relatable, clever, and well written they were.
And why do you like them, Mr. Danny? What
Why
they
do I
are
like?
characteristics that you
I
like
like
them?
that because it's very related. It's relatable and it requires hard work, and those are things that I like. Um, it's not easy and to be a clean comedian and constantly create more and more material, right? So I have two comedy specials. One that was launched in 2019, one that is just released on YouTube last week. And the more material I put out there on social media, the more pressure I feel to create new material when people come see me live. So it's sort of a catch 22. Yes, I want to get the content out there for folks to enjoy, but it does push me to work harder during my live performances.
Mr. Danny, walk us through the life cycle of a bit. How does it start as a frustration, a weird
Oh,
observation,
yes.
a phase?
Great question again. The origination of a bit is anything that moves or strikes me. Any kind of emotion. So it could be sadness, happiness, excitement, embarrassment, frustration, anger. and I'm constantly putting it in my phone, in my
Mm-hmm.
notes, right? I get the idea in notes, and then I let it marinate for 24 hours, and then I start to write about it the next day or week or so. And I will start by writing everything I know about that topic, everything I wish I knew, and then everything I think people will ask a question about that topic. From there, we'll start creating the bit, the story, the what do I want to get at this with this chunk of material. Um, Sometimes it never makes it to the stage. I can't make it work. Sometimes go to a tight circle of friends that I'm familiar with, and we comedians get together and kind of bounce ideas off one another. And eventually, it makes it to the stage, and then I try it probably 100 times, um, growing it or editing it, um, or adding it to a piece of material I already do until I fine tune it. And it takes a long time for me to fine tune a bit.
So, how do you navigate the line between what is edgy and what is offensive?
Oof. I think offensive is when your intent is to insult. Your intent is to defame or um, offend somebody. Edgy is you can talk about that very same topic in a funny way. So I don't shy away from any particular topic. I just stick to what I know or what I feel is funny or what interests me. So people ask me sometimes, why don't I talk about politics on stage? And I say, well, it doesn't interest me. It's not something that strikes me, moves me emotionally in one direction or the other. So I don't talk about it. But if I have an idea, I'll run with it.
Tell us about the time you bomb a spectac or you bomb something else that you don't like. What did the silence teach you? The applause never could.
Right. So that is a interesting phenomenon in comedy, right? Because or we as the comedians are experts in what is funny. However, we allow the audience to tell us if we're right or not. Um, so I, to this day, still do open mic nights to try and work out new material. I did one last Wednesday in front of 12 people, not ideal, and it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. But I leveraged it in a way that at least I got to hear myself say the words. I got to hear my cadence, my pace, my timing. I would have liked to hear more reaction, but with 11 people in a room that sits 300, it's a little tough. So you can consider that bombing, but in all reality, I was just working out the new material.
Mr. Donny, how much of the you on a stage is an amplified character and how much is the real unfiltered person?
I would say that me on stage is it sort of my personality on steroids. So, I think I mentioned earlier, comedians are silent observers. So off stage, I'm very quiet, reserved. People are surprised to find out we are comedians when you're talking to one off stage. And when I get on stage, it's like, oh, now is my time to create, to share my ideas. So it is how do I say, um an exaggerated version of me on stage, but it is my true feelings of whatever it is: frustration, love, anger.
On the grind and the journey, Mr. Donny, we often hear success stories, but what was your most demoralizing? What I'm doing with my life?
Yeah. I think that that's an ongoing thing for me at this stage of my comedy career. There are opportunities that come across my palette, so to speak, that I do take in order to make a living, and I'm not necessarily taking to be a great comedian, if that makes sense. I am taking it to make a living. It's not the most artistic thing or creative thing, but I need to make a living. So those things, hopefully, I get to continue to be more and more selective with those. Not having to take those things, but one needs to bring in income to continue to do it. So that makes sense.
Makes sense. Beyond the stage time, what's the most surprising and glamorous or difficult part of the comedy business that most people don't see?
All of the writing and the rewriting. So you you could easily, if you're good, you could easily type out a 5-page idea and whittle it down to 1 page over time. So and then are you self-aware enough, are you emotionally intelligent enough to recognize how much quote unquote fat you have in your joke or idea or story, and what can be edited? Are you listening to the audience? So the amount of work, and I think that's why most comedians dislike hecklers or people that yell out in the show, because they spend so much time working on this idea, this premise, this thing that um being interrupted is frustrating. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Whether a single break that changed everything for you, or was it a
Mm.
series of small accumulated wins that built your career?
It's a small for me, nothing, no one big event. Certainly the release of my two comedy specials, both of which I link on my website, the dannyjohnson.com that you're seeing. And those are big moments. I've gotten to work with many different celebrities. Those are big moments. But for me, looking back at 2 decades of comedy, it's the small victories. It's the building of material. It's the getting into a new venue that I've been trying to get into to perform, traveling to different states, here in the states. And so I think it's you build a resume of success, tiny successes.
Mr. Danny, in early days, which was harder, writing 5 solid minutes of material or just getting the opportunity to perform those 5 minutes on a stage?
Great question. I probably, I think if I think back, it was probably easier to write the material because chances are it all wasn't that very good. So there was probably a lot of it. So it might have been harder to get the stage time. But nowadays, in my hometown and in most bigger cities, you can get on stage somewhere almost every night, at least try. These are open mics, like non-paid stuff. So even I'm not in a big city, but um, close enough, and there are 7 days a week. There's an opportunity if I need to go on stage and work stuff out. So, in in the beginning, you think you have a lot more material than you do. You don't. You think you have an hour, you probably have 20 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe, um, until you learn to trim the fat.
Hmm. On the psychology and the inner world, Mr. Danny, what drives you to keep doing this? Is it a connection,
Yeah.
the catharsis, validation, or sheer of love of the craft?
It's two things. It's love of the craft, putting together ideas that came from my head and communicating them in such a way that strangers laugh. But I think most importantly, there really is nothing more I love to do than to make people laugh. Even in my everyday life and on an errand to the store, if I can brighten someone's day or change someone's mood by getting a quick chuckle, it brings me a ton of joy to do so. And doing stand up allows me to do that in mass. If you know,
Comedy often comes from a place of pain or insecurity, Mr. Danny. How do you balance minding your personal life or material without letting the performance reopen the old wounds night after night?
yeah. Um, I think, yeah, for sure. And my comedy is all from my life, and there is an underlying anger in my material, even though it's clean and it's not mean spirited. There's an underlying frustration, anger, insecurity in all of it. Um, and it really is a form of therapy. So to me, the more I open up, the better I feel. So to me, it's like some people say that if they open up too much, it opens up old wounds. But for me, it's different. The more I talk about what's bothering me in my life, even the mundane, the little things in life, um, the better I feel. And then hopefully the better you as an audience feel by laughing at it.
Mr. Donny, as a clean comedian, actor, voice-over artist, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
I would love to continue to make a living doing this. Nothing beats a live performance. So as much as I promote my online stuff, which I think everyone should listen to or watch, right? Selfishly, and I think they'll enjoy it. It's the live. I want to be 100 years old telling jokes somewhere, to make people laugh. That is my long term goal. Short term goal, I'd like to get a little bit more television exposure, and perhaps branch out into auditioning for movie roles.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Donny, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a comedian like you?
You just have to do it. There is no comedy class. There are comedy classes that exist, but there is no class that beats getting up there and doing it. And I mean, especially in the early years, as often as possible in front of as many different kinds of audiences as possible, at as many different kinds of venues as possible. This will build your not only help you build your material, but build your thick skin, your ability to improvise on with different um, style venues, whether it's loud, quiet, no lights, lights, no microphone, microphone, and also finally get exposure to as many demographics of people uh, that that you tell jokes to, and which I love to see. I want as many different ages, races, colors in my religions in my crowd as possible, um, because that's the goal for me to make as many people laugh as possible.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. Donny. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
I have three, if you don't mind, that briefly mention.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So the first one is called The Comedy Bible by author Judy Carter, and this one is one that I um, read many times in the beginning of my career. It is a great beginner's book called The Comedy Bible by Judy Carter, and it takes you through the structure of joke writing, the structure of stage presence, and the business side of comedy, how to book gigs, what's professional, what's unprofessional, so on and so forth. So I took a lot from that book, and I still have it with all my notes in it from 20 years ago. Still refer to it um, to this day. And so I've taken quite a lot from that. Now, another book that I mentioned three books. One that I read in the beginning of my career, one that I read over and over again, which I'll talk about next, and then one that I'm currently reading. So the one that I read over and over again, I don't know if you can see, but it's John Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie. Have you heard of this book?
No, Charlie.
Yeah, Travels with Charlie is by John Steinbeck. And this book intrigues me, and I've read it probably 7 times, if I had to guess. Author John Steinbeck, it's nonfiction, realizes that as a famous author, he's sort of out of touch with American people. He's up in his high tower, so to speak, metaphorically. So he builds a camper from an old truck, tells his wife goodbye, I'm going to travel the country, and he begins to just drive around the United States in this camper with his dog Charlie. No destination in mind, just stopping randomly to meet different strangers, to camp with them, spend the night, have some drinks, have a meal. And he ended up meeting all of these different strangers of all walks of life, makes his rounds all the way through and back to the Northeast where he lives in the US. And he talks throughout the book about what he's learned about, and this was in the 1960s that he took this journey. So through the civil rights movement and through meeting all these different people, he realized how much people are just so disconnected across the country. Um, and he ultimately takes away from this trip that people don't go on trips. Trips take people. So he loves the connection, the reconnection with the American people. And I sort of it's sort of like a comedian, you know. Oftentimes we're on the road away from home for days, weeks, and so this book really connected with me.
Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Danny. If you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self just
Mhm.
starting out, what would you warn then about?
What would I warn my son about?
Yes.
I would say if I could go back and teach him something, or make or ingrain it more in his head, it would be to invest early and often for long-term success. And he's doing that, but he could have started earlier, and he could be more frugal with his finances. And then secondly and lastly, to and he continues to do this, but maybe not to the passionate level that I'd like him, just to pursue the career he really wants. You know, he's still finishing up school, so um, going to work for someone else is probably not the best fit for him. Um, but we'll see. I just hope he continues to be open with me and communicate with me, and I can do my best to guide him.
Definitely. And what is one unwritten rule of the comedy world that every aspiring comedian should know?
Unwritten rule: every comedian should know not to take another person's material. That will get you blacklisted from the community really quickly, or canceled, so to speak. So you can have the same premise, the same idea, but make it your own through your own experiences. You don't want to lift jokes word for word from other comedians.
Mr. Donny, what is your relationship with creating content for platforms like TikTok or Instagram? Does the pressure to be constantly on and creating a short form bits help to hinder a development of a longer, more nuanced act?
Yes, I don't like it. I'm not a fan of social media. Um, it is something that I, leverage a social media team for assistance with it. Um, because I'm not the most technologically savvy person, but I don't like that pressure of constantly having to put on a show. So some of my posts on some of my social media will just be me ranting, not necessarily with any point, just trying to be humorous in some way. But I don't allow that to get me down. I don't feel the pressure of having to be entertaining all the time.
Mr. Danny, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in fourth season, and movie 101 review, music 101 in fourth season as well, and science 101 and sex 101 in second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Donny, ultimately, what do you hope your comedy gives people? Is it just escape, a moment of connection, a new perspective, or something else entirely?
Can you repeat that?
Ultimately, what do you hope your comedy gives people?
Ah, very good. I hope that when they come see me live, or they go to any one of my social media channels, which I think you mentioned, Danny Johnson Comedy on all platforms, that they leave in a better mood than they came in with. You know, that this guy Danny made my day, made me smile, made me laugh, and changed the way. And obviously, and literally, chemically speaking, laughter changes how you're feeling in a literal sense, physically. So I would love if they walked away with, wow, that I'm glad I went to that show or watched that video online. That's the experience I want folks to have with my comedy.
Interesting, Mr. Danny Johnson. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite the listeners to support your projects, your advocacy, or whatever you want to promote on
Yeah,
Book 101?
absolutely. So they can go to DannyJohnson.com, DANNYJOHNSON.com. That's my website. All my links are there to my Facebook, my YouTube, my TikTok and Instagram, and then my comedy special is also linked in the bios. There's two of them. One just came out on YouTube. The other one is on social media and also Amazon, Apple TV, and Peacock. Danny Johnson Comedy is my social media handle, and my website's DannyJohnson.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Danny Johnson because if you support him, for sure, more and more laughter to come. So, Mr. Danny, thank you so much for your time.
Daniel, thank you so much for having me. Best of luck to you. This was fun. Thank you.
You are most welcome. More to come, people. See you soon.